I want to start with this story here that I don't think gets nearly enough attention. It's the Trump effect. And yes, it's at the border, but it's specific to fentanyl. In 2023 and 2024, there was an average of 2,000 pounds monthly in 85 seizure events under Joe Biden of fentanyl. In October of 2024, so right around the election, to January 2025, that average fell from 2,000 pounds to 990 pounds monthly in 47 seizure events. In February of 2025, seizures plummeted to just 590 pounds in 45 seizure events. To put this in perspective, that is countless, tens of thousands, if not 100,000 or more lives saved just in the drop of fentanyl at the border. And to help me describe all of this and to put a personal story on it is Ann Fundner, who is a mom, and she is an advocate for the stopping of fentanyl crossing our borders and poisoning our children. And welcome to the Charlie Kirk Show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor to have you. We wanted to have you on for quite a while at this point, and this story still resonates so loudly, Ann. And I just want to bring our audience up to speed of this powerful moment that you had at the RNC. I mean, I was there in Milwaukee. I remember this moment. I remember when you went on stage. I remember everybody in the whole complex talking about it afterwards. Let's go ahead and play cut 306.
My family and I were living in Southern California when President Biden took office and opened our borders. My Weston was 15, and in a moment of peer pressure, he tried something that someone gave to him, and it took my baby's life. We did everything right. I had those conversations with him, and fentanyl still found my son. And on February 27th, 2022, our lives were shattered and our baby was gone. This was not an overdose, it was a poisoning. His whole future, everything we ever wanted for him was ripped away in an instant. And Joe Biden does nothing. I hold Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the borders are, what a joke. And Gavin Newsom and every Democrat who supports open borders responsible for the death of my son.
It's an incredibly powerful moment, and you were so brave for doing that in front of that audience, in that context, in that forum. Tell us more about your personal story and your son.
Well, my son he's a really sweet kid. He was a good kid. He was so warm-hearted, had a lot of friends. He was very well-liked. He always stood up for what was right and wasn't afraid to tell people, that, just to cut it out if they were, not being nice to someone. He always stood up for what was right, even if it was against one of his friends picking on someone. He was generous. He was kind. He played sports. He was smart, had a good GPA, went to church twice a week, very strong faith, which I cling to because I know where he is, and I know his life had a purpose. But he was my everything. He was my firstborn, and I never knew what love was, or that my heart had that kind of love in me until I met him. And so he, it was a shock. It was blindsided. And my lesson to everybody is, I assure you, this could happen to you. So that's what I'm doing, crusading.
And you have not stopped since the RNC. I mean, you have been busy crisscrossing the country, raising awareness for this important issue, and educate our audience on how fentanyl actually gets into the country. Where does it start? I know much has been made of China's role in this, gets smuggled in through the southern border and elsewhere. Tell us how it gets into America and how it ends up poisoning our children.
So it starts in China, where these factories make illicit fentanyl, the precursor chemicals. It's then shipped to Mexico, to the cartels, where who knows who is definitely, not a chemist that works for, Merck or Pfizer. It's somebody who probably, has no idea what they're doing, sprinkles it into a bunch of blue press powder, and they press it with the exact markings of pharmaceutical pills. From there, it comes over our open borders. And, I think you mentioned that under Joe Biden, they were seizing about 2,000 pounds a month. And that's not nearly what comes over here. That's the tip of the iceberg, the very tip. So, it comes over through that. It also comes over through the de minimis loophole. President Trump just put triple tariffs on Temu and Shein, because anything under $800 does not have to be inspected when it comes from overseas. And, Temu and Shein being somewhat social media, kind of like a little bit of an Amazon, one's for fashion, one's like Amazon. They have private senders shipping things over. And fentanyl bricks were coming over that way. And so that's it. Just, those are the main ways it comes over, but it's still coming over in ways we don't know. And that's what we're getting to the bottom of. And there's a stockpile over here. So it's not going to stop all of a sudden. Multi-billion-dollar corporations called the cartels don't shut down overnight, and neither do the thousands of factory workers in China. So this is a business, make no mistake. These are CEOs making a lot of money, and they don't intend to shut down anytime soon. So we still need to fight every single day.
Absolutely. Well, we've got to root out all these loopholes. This is, please, and we want to be a part of that. So please message us after this segment of what we need to be focusing our attention on, because we want to advocate on behalf of families like yours, on behalf of families like mine. And you made this point, I think, so beautifully, both here, but also at the RNC, how you guys did everything you could to love your children so well. You did nothing wrong. It was the failure of leadership that let this happen. And nowhere is that more clearly visible than at the southern border. And I want to emphasize this point, Ann, when you have the morale of our Border Patrol agents was dangerously low. But not only that, they were overwhelmed. They became paper processing staffers of the federal government, essentially. They were not allowed to do their job. And now, in an about face that is truly historic, and we have, I believe, a graphic that will demonstrate this for you visually, 312, go ahead and throw that up. They were, the amount of border crossers that were coming over were overwhelming our Border Patrol agents, so they weren't able to do searches and seizures like they normally would or would want to do. And now we have the numbers at such a place, and you can see how they've plummeted under President Trump, where there is enough personnel to do more searches. So we're going to be getting more of this fentanyl per search, per seizure, per operation than we would have before, when they were completely overwhelmed and overrun at the border. And so there's reporting now, Todd Bensman, who comes on this show often, has done reporting of this in the Daily Wire, that the cartels are actually realizing they're not able to smuggle as much of this fentanyl across the border, thank God. Unfortunately, they're turning their sights on Europe and other countries. They're now shipping it abroad to those countries, which, thank God it's not in our country, but this needs to be rooted out where it originates, and that's China. That's with tariffs and so much more. And I want to keep you on for one more segment, if you're able, if you have the time, and continue this very important conversation. More with Ann Funder when we get back.